Hunter Brown and Hunter Green both continued their ascension into acehood in 2025. Today, we will discuss which of them will reign elite in 2026, as well as some other great fantasy baseball discussion on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics. I'm Dominic Martino, riding solo today. And welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Thank you, everydayers and new listeners, for making us your first listen each and every day, and the #1 podcast network, #1 sports podcast network. Matt and I are longtime fantasy baseball analysts. Between the two of us, there's over 40 years of fantasy baseball knowledge, and we do this podcast to share it with you. Wherever you watch and or listen, please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review. It means a lot to us. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And guys, when you listen on FanDuel, what you're going to do is, you're going to go over there and, you're going to, use their most recent offer. What they got going on right now is actually going to run that from the top. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA, NFL, and NFL seasons are here. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning on your future bets now. And all right, here we go. Today's episode, we're doing something a little bit fun, something a little bit different. It's the off season. So I want to take a look back at 2025 and talk about some of my favorite breakout players, some players that, I think are going to be fun in 2026 that we need to keep our eyes out on. We're going to do the pitchers first, then we'll get into the bats. And once again, it's just going to be a fun fantasy baseball driven episode where we're going to take a look back at 2025, talk about what these players did to break out or, be extra productive, and then take a look forward into 2026 as well. And we're going to talk about where we should be drafting them, what the upside is, and why I personally just, like these players. So, what I kind of wanted to call this was a Dom's faves kind of episode. So, like me, you like what I do, my rankings, stuff like that. For I've helped you at all, fantasy baseball. I think you'll really enjoy this episode because I'm going to give you some really good thoughts on a lot of great players. So let's start off with Hunter Green. We're going to do the two Hunters first, but we'll start with Hunter Green of the two. Another just great year. Another step, as I said, into acehood at the beginning. I think I said it perfect at the top, and he's here, and he dealt with injury last year. I think if Hunter Green just manages to stay healthy, he's definitely a top 10 starting pitcher. Obviously, the ballpark he pitches in holds him back a little bit, but it's not like he has, super atrocious splits or anything like that. Obviously he does pitch better at home, but he does pitch better away from home. But, 2 awesome years in a row. We'll do just this year first. I'm going to combine the two. We'll talk about it. 19 starts for Hunter Green in 2025. Had a 2.76 ERA, 107 innings pitched, 132 strikeouts, an 0.93 whip, which is just amazing. He really limited the walks, which was a problem for Hunter Green, at a certain point in time. But he just really has figured it out. He has elite stuff, obviously leads with that awesome fastball that hits triple digits regularly. At 25 years old last year, will be 26 years old, this 2026 season. I have Hunter Green ranked very highly as my number 8 starting pitcher going into 2026. And I just don't think there's any reason not to trust him. He has the really low ERA 2 years in a row. We'll combine it. We'll do so. It winds up being we'll do Hunter Green's last 45 starts, which is the last 2 years. It's 16 wins, 9 losses, a 2.76 ERA, 258 innings, 301 strikeouts, and he has an 0.98 whip over that time with a 3.39 FIP, which is obviously fielding independent pitching. It's an ERA indicator, kind of tells you where the ERA should be rather than where it is. And it's not super far off from, Hunter Green's 2.75 and 2.76 ERA. The last 2 years, you know what, at this rate, he's going to have a 2.77 ERA. Oh, God forbid, Hunter Green, it takes a 0.001 step forward in the ERA, but obviously that's just me messing around. If it's a low 3s ERA, that we're perfectly okay with that, because Hunter Green, I think, still could be even better in strikeouts. The whip gain the last 2 years has been amazing. This kid's just an absolute ace. I want Hunter Green shares next year if I can get him. I think obviously we're gonna have to pay that ace upside, but I think it's definitely gonna be worth it. The team context, obviously the Reds are battling. They're going through it. Hunter Green won. I don't know if I mentioned it. He won. Oh, sheesh. 7 games last year, so it could be better, but that was over 19 starts, so it's not too bad. The year before in 2024, Hunter Green, 26 starts, 9 wins. I think that's going to be the next step forward. And wow, we actually have some way too early projections here. I'm actually on Baseball Reference, so shout out to Baseball Reference. They have way too early 2026 projections. They have Hunter Green for 3.35 ERA. That's going to be over 129 innings, 148 strikeouts, 1.10 whip, and 8 wins. I don't like that. I think that's and a save for some reason. Oddly enough, I'm not buying any of that. I think that's a little out of whack and too early. I like Hunter Green, and he's just a guy who we're gonna believe in the elite stuff. And no reason that just still very young, getting better. No reason not to. And just one more thing before we move on from Hunter Green. Just want to get into the arsenal a little bit more, maybe a little bit of the underlying stuff. Obviously talked about how good the fastball velocity is. Gets a lot of chases, was in the 89th percentile, 90th percentile when it came to getting whiffs. Strikeouts, obviously up the wazoo. Doesn't really walk too many guys. I would love to see him get more ground balls. That's, I think, one thing he could do to take a little step forward, even more. But batters hit 199 against the fastball, 156 against the slider. The split finger did get banged around a little bit at a 310 average against. So maybe working on that a little bit, because he did strictly just throw 3 pitches last year. Did throw 2 curveballs, but we're not really going to count that. So with Hunter Green, obviously great stuff. One of the best pitchers in the game for good reason. Let's do Hunter Brown. Hunter Brown, just another great pitcher. And another guy that just kind of proved to us last year he's an absolute ace. Like the team context a little bit more. And, the underlying stuff, I think, does give the edge to Hunter Brown a little bit more read on that Baseball Savant page. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, Baseball Savant is a great page if you're into like the underlying stuff, the real nerdy stats. You go on that page, literally as soon as you pop it up, there's a little bit of there's a few graphs, or not graphs, but there's charts on the right-hand side. Red is good, blue is bad, and a lot of red on that Hunter Brown page. I have Hunter Brown, I think I just said it, as my 7th starting pitcher going into 2026 in my way too early rankings, 1 spot ahead of Hunter Green. Honestly, they're almost interchangeable, but like I said, I like the underlying stuff a little bit better for Hunter Brown. He's, a year older, going to be 27 going into the 2026 season. And he's got good stuff too, a bit more pitches. He actually throws he throws 6 different pitches, and they all almost 5% of the time. The fastball sits at 97, really good pitch for him. Batters hit only 198, 182 against that. The sinker, secondary pitch, did get hit a little bit, better clip at 265, but then you have the knuckle curve, which was great 18% of the time. Hunter Brown threw that one. Batters only hit 150 against that. And then Hunter Brown's changeup got hit at a 186 clip, which, all of his, primary pitches did really good last year, just taking step forwards everywhere you want to see. He's a big dude at 6'2", 220. I think the Astros are going to be better than, the Reds. So I think a little bit more win opportunity. And, let's do, I don't even think I ran off, Hunter Brown's numbers last year. So we're going to do that real quick in a second here and, just break that down too, because, he was somebody that I was fairly high on, coming into the last even few years. But, he did have a bit of a down year in 2023 after, his debut in the bigs in 2022. I still believe that Hunter Brown had a good 2024, but he just had an elite 2025. 31 starts, 2.43 ERA, 185 innings, 206 strikeouts, a 102 whip, everything moving in the right direction for the young Hunter Brown. And if you don't know, and if you did know, let's not forget, Hunter Brown was taken under the wing of Justin Verlander when he was over there in Houston. Very similar release. Just when you get to learn and even just talk to a guy like that, learn his routine, and Hunter Brown's a student of the game, I think he's just going to have an elite 2026 season. Hunter Greene and Hunter Brown are both must drafts for me. And before we move on and talk a little bit about Trevor Rogers, we talk about how much I love Mason Miller, and then we'll do the bats. Roman Anthony, just a bunch of fun names coming up next. And all right, guys, I want to talk to you about my friends over at FanDuel, because the NBA is back, right? And there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score the next fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into same game parlays for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps everything, exciting, especially when your team's making that late game push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. But, if you guys have been around, I don't like to leave you empty-handed because I've been doing a little bit of fantasy basketball this time of year. And, I got some guys that I do like. So what we're going to do here is, we're going to go with let's stick with Karl Anthony Towns, man. It's been working out. Knicks have been a little bit, down a couple of key players. Jalen Brunson's been out. OG is banged up. So we're doing the rebounds for Karl Anthony Towns. We're going to do the points, three-pointer, stuff like that. And then let's also throw out there, let's stick with just easy ones that I think are, have been, locks for this season. Let's do Devin Booker on points. And I want to stick with Austin Reeves on assists. LeBron's back. I think the points might go down for Reeves, so let's not do points for him, but let's definitely do assist. So we're going to do all of that on FanDuel.com or on the app. And once again, FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And all right, guys, once again, just real quick, thank you all for, our everydayers and new listeners for making Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On, the number one sports podcast network. And once again, shout out to our everydayers and new listeners for doing that. And once again, make sure you guys check out that newsletter as well. So let's get back into things and let's keep it going. Let's talk about another starting pitcher here. Let's do Trevor Rogers. And man, Trevor Rogers I want to say came out of nowhere because we really just weren't expecting him to be this good or as good as he was in, 2025. The guy was awesome for those Baltimore Orioles, and he did it over 18 starts. It was a 1.81 ERA, 109 innings pitched, 103 strikeouts, and he had an 0.90 whip. He will not be that good again in 2026, but can it be a low threes ERA with around a K per nine and a good whip? I think it's definitely possible for a guy like Trevor Rogers, who was a really, really good pitcher, coming up as a rookie, had great stats for, the Marlins. Not his rookie season in 2020, but his full-blown rookie season in not the cup of coffee in 2020. I should say his full-blown rookie season in 2021, where he had 25 starts, 2.64 ERA. Once again, Trevor Rogers is who I'm talking about here. 133 innings, 157 strikeouts, and a 1.15 whip. He did fall off after that. Had a few bad years in a row, dealt with injury, stuff like that. But he's back and looked really good. And the underlying stuff backs up a lot of what Trevor Rogers did. The underlying stuff for ERA looks like a 3.36 ERA. So like I said, even if it's a low threes ERA, you're still fine. X batting average against wasn't too bad. Still was getting good chase, getting decent whiffs, not walking too many guys, getting a good amount of ground balls. I like all that from a guy like Trevor Rogers. And the fastball velocity back up was around 93 on average last year, back up from 91.9 in 2024. And batters only hit 158 against that fastball. Wound up going with the changeup as his secondary pitch, which, was a switch off of the sinker. And guess what? It worked out because the changeup got hit at a 202 batting average against, and the sinker got hit at a 296 batting average against. At least, Trevor Rogers, realized, hey, that's not a good pitch for me. I'm going to, slide it down a little bit. But he also had this nasty slider that was working for him that he was throwing 12% of the time. And guess what the batting average against was on that? 0.061. So maybe if he works that slider a little bit more, maybe the sinker a little bit less, there could be a world where Trevor Rogers is just a really, really good starting pitcher again. With that being said, I have Trevor Rogers ranked at real quick going into 2026. I know it's going to be too high and it might even sound somewhat crazy, but I have Trevor Rogers ranked at 35. It's high, and I'm not going to take him there. I have to adjust, but I'm just going to keep double, tripling, quadrupling down even on how bad starting pitcher is going to be in 2026. So we got to draft accordingly. We're going to do one more pitcher. We'll talk a little bit about Mason Miller here. I make Mason Miller ranked as my number one closer going into 2026. I do not think the Padres have any reason to, re-sign Robert Suarez, who was their primary closer in 2025. Mason Miller, with good reason, is, going to be, I think, just absolutely elite in 2026. Let's talk about what he did specifically when he got over to the Padres. 22 games, an 0.77 ERA, did grab 2 saves, 23 innings pitched, 45 strikeouts, and he had an 0.72 whip. The kid's going to be 27 years old, and I'm just calling it now. This is the year. If you do want to get crazy and draft closers super early, or you're just in one of those formats like a big money league, or like kind of set it and forget it kind of format where you just draft and you don't touch your lineup for the whole season, or format similar to that, I wouldn't be afraid to grab Mason Miller high, just because I'm really, really predicting that this is going to just be that year where he takes off, and it's just, we don't question who the best closer in baseball is anymore. And I think there's like an opening. Edwin Diaz is getting a little bit older. Emmanuel Clase, we all know what happened to him. Devin Williams looks a bit cooked. Josh Hader also getting older. Raisel Iglesias getting older. just as I go through, the list of closers, there's going to be a changing of the guard soon. I think Mason Miller leads that, and just is the best closer in baseball in 2026. Let's move on to the bats. I'm going to sneak up one bat in here. Let's do Roman Anthony real quick, man. I'm excited about what Roman Anthony could do in 2026. You don't really see a rookie come up and do, even just a 21-year-old come up and do what Roman Anthony did in a small sample size. It was 71 games for Roman Anthony, which worked out to 257 at-bats, 48 runs, 18 doubles, a triple, 8 homers, 32 RBIs, 4 steals, 40 walks to 84 strikeouts, and a 292 batting average. Roman Anthony's going to be elite. He's got everything you're looking for in not only a fantasy baseball player, but just a real life baseball player. Dominated his time in the minors last year in AAA. Before the call up, Roman Anthony played in 58 games, 212 at-bats, 45 runs, 9 doubles, 2 triples, 10 homers, 29 RBIs, 3 steals, 51 walks to 56 strikeouts at 288. The kid's the real deal. I have a feeling it's going to get pushed out of proportion, and you're going to have to take him as your OF1. Am I mad at that a little bit? But can you do it and still be okay? Most likely. I have Roman Anthony not ranked as a top 10 outfielder. I have him at 14. Do I want to push it any higher than that? Probably not. I think if you get him as an outfielder number 2, I think we might be able to do it. I want to say before, spring training starts, because I know Roman Anthony's just going to look good at spring training, and it's just everyone's going to get excited. I'm going to get excited, frankly, and it's going to be, one of those like table lifting moments, but you know what I'm saying, you catch my drift. And I'm saying that stuff as a Yankee fan, no less. But just love Roman Anthony, what he can do, and the upside, and just draft him with confidence. If you have to take him as outfield number 1, you're going to be fine. But he's going to be fun if you can get him as an outfield number 2, because it's going to be like almost like a cheat code scenario. Like I said, the kid just does it all. Roman Anthony, huge season incoming for 2026. Before I move on and I finish up these bats, I got fun names like Michael Harris, Ivan Herrera, Zach Neto, and potentially more coming up next. All right, and let's do it. Let's talk about him. I'll do this. I'm going to talk about Michael Harris a lot this offseason, and especially when Matt's here. I will say this. Matt's got a lot going on right now. At home, and it's kind of when you've been seeing a little bit more of just me of late. So I hope Matt, and just you can sound off in the comments if you like Matt. I love Matt like a brother, so but he's got some stuff going on. But me and Matt love to talk about Michael Harris. That's why I was bringing him up. I didn't want to get too much into the sad stuff. But Michael Harris is just such a fun name to talk about and debate about. The numbers on the year just wound up okay, not like great. I'll read you off the whole season numbers last year for Michael Harris, who was only 24 years old last year. 160 games played, 611 at-bats, only 55 runs, 26 doubles, 6 triples, 20 homers, 86 RBIs, 20 steals, and hit 249. It just doesn't tell the whole story of Michael Harris. Struggled, had a really, really bad start to the season, but did manage to pick it up really, really well. I'm gonna just, if you bear with me, I'm gonna give you a little bit of a breakdown here of where Michael Harris really caught fire. It was like around July. So we're going to go with July 25th as the barometer there because that's when I really believe the breakout occurred. So Michael Harris's final 61 games of the season, and mind you, he had finished the season with 20 home runs and 20 steals. So final 61 games of the season for Michael Harris, 241 at-bats, 32 runs. On the season, it was 55. Had 13 doubles, 3 triples, 13 home runs. On the season, he had 20 home runs, 40 RBIs, 8 steals. On the season, he had 20 steals, and he hit 303 over that time. He was on fire. I just really believe in Michael Harris, and he's still so young. He's only going to be 25 years old in the 2026 season. I don't. It really just depends on the lineup spot and like the breakdown. The Braves are bad, and the Braves are bad this year. It's surprisingly with Acuna, Matt Olson, the whole squad, Austin Riley, the whole squad over there. Drake Baldwin was really the only super bright spot in that abysmal lineup. So I just truly think all those guys are going to be better this year, and it's going to help a guy like Michael Harris, more runs, more RBIs. I truly think there's room to grow on the power and the speed. I do want to see what Savant says for the underlying stuff with a Michael Harris. Even though it might not have been great last year, I know it was good the year or years prior. The sprint speed was 79th percentile last year for Michael Harris, which is pretty good. The underlying stuff for power, not great. But once again, just go a year back to 2024. All of the power stuff looked a lot better. I want to say Michael Harris has 20, plus homer upside with 30 plus steal upside. And he's a career 274 hitter. And the underlying stuff for batting average in 2024, his ex batting average was 284. In 2025, his ex batting average was 271. So there's still room for this kid to have a good batting average with good power, good speed, and potentially solid runs and RBIs as well. I just love me some Michael Harris, and I think we get a nice cheap discount on him going into 2026 because we get a lot of people like cough cough Matt who aren't going to believe and just be fully out on a Michael Harris when you had to draft Michael Harris as the 19th outfielder going into 2025 at pick around 47. I think he's going to fall. I think you're going to be able to get him as an outfielder number 3, maybe even a utility in some formats. And it just might pay dividends because you know what? Acuna is going to be healthy and, for a full season. And I think Acuna, Matt Olson, Riley, and the rest of those guys are going to be performing well enough. And it's going to take some of that heat off of Harris. And it's not going to be as big of a deal. And I just truly believe he takes a step forward going into 2026. I'll tell you where I have him ranked real quick before, I move on to the next player here. I have Michael Harris ranked as my number 24 outfielder. So right on that outfield high end, low end outfielder 2, high end outfielder 3 verge. And I think he's a safe outfielder number 2, to be honest with you. So Michael Harris, draft him with confidence going to 2026. Let's talk about Ivan Herrera. If you're familiar with me in the podcast at all, Ivan Herrera was somebody that I was very high on going into, the 2025 season. I drafted him almost everywhere, and it worked out. Yeah, he was banged up, missed a little bit of time, but Herrera produced. We weren't expecting the power that he gave us. Wound up just being, a bonus. And I think if he can stay healthy for, let's say 130, 140 games, we can get some really nice numbers here. But in the 107 games he did play in 2025, Herrera had 388 at-bats, 54 runs, 13 doubles, 19 bombs, 66 RBIs, 8 steals, 43 walks to 84 strikeouts, and a 284 batting average. He was a cheat code at the catcher position. I think he will be a little bit elevated, going into 2026, but it's deserved. It's well deserved. I have Ivan Herrera as number 8 catcher. I could see him being maybe a little bit closer to 10 in some spots, but he's another guy. I think you're just going to be able to draft him with confidence, and he's just going to treat you really well, while he's healthy. I want to sneak this last guy in. I want to talk about Zach Neto a little bit. Just because he dealt with injury and he might not be at the top of people's minds, especially, anyone who started tuning baseball out a little bit early and was getting ready for football, might not have realized that Neto did get hurt, only played 128 games last season, but he did have 502 at-bats, 82 runs, 29 doubles, 26 homers, 62 RBIs, 26 steals, and hit 257. He was on the verge of a monster breakout. If he would have gotten 155 games played and 600 plus at-bats, it would have been 100 runs. It would have been 30 easily with like 85 RBIs. And the batting average was trending up. I think it could have been 265 plus easily for Zach Neto. He's going to be one of my favorite guys to draft in 2026, just as long as the price doesn't get out of whack. I have Neto ranked as my number 9 shortstop, right behind like Geraldo Perdomo going into 2026. And I think that's going to be a safe spot. I think we're going to be able to get him there. And I don't think we're going to have to overpay for a kid who's going to be only 25 years old in 2026. And it just got a feeling another big, an even bigger breakout coming for Zach Neto in 2026. Guys, that is all for today. So, thank you for our everydayers and new listeners for making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. And for your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night, every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. So, guys, until next time, soy.